city of development of the nation. The mining proletariat. The production of raw materials and fuel for a manufacture so colossal as that of England requires a considerable number of workers. But of all the materials needed for its industries except wool, which belongs to the agricultural districts, England produces only the minerals, the metals and the coal. While Cornwall possesses rich copper, tin, zinc, and lead mines, Staffordshire, Wales, and other districts yield great quantities of iron, and almost the whole north and west of England, central Scotland, and certain districts of Ireland, produce a superabundance of coal. 241. In the Cornish mines about 19,000 men, and 11,000 women and children are employed, in part above, and in part below ground. Within the mines below ground, men and boys above 12 years old are employed almost exclusively. The condition of these workers seems, according to the Children's Employment Commission's reports, to be comparatively endurable, materially, and the English often enough boast of their strong bold miners, who follow the veins of mineral below the bottom of the very sea. But in the matter of the health of these workers, this same Children's Employment Commission's report judges differently. It shows in Dr. Barron's intelligence report how the inhalation of an atmosphere containing little oxygen, and mixed with dust and the smoke of blasting powder, such as prevails in the mines, seriously affects the lungs, disturbs the action of the heart, and diminishes the activity of the digestive organs, that wearing toil, and especially the climbing up and down of ladders, upon which even vigorous young men have to spend in some mines more than an hour a day, and which precedes and follows daily work, contributes greatly to the development of these evils, so that men who begin this work in early youth are far from reaching the stature of women who work above ground, that many die young of galloping consumption, and most miners at middle age of slow consumption, that they age prematurely, and become unfit for work between the 35th and 45th years. That many are attacked by acute inflammations of the respiratory organs when exposed to the sudden change from the warm air of the shaft, after climbing the ladder in profuse perspiration, to the cold wind above ground, and that these acute inflammations are very frequently fatal. Work above ground, breaking and sorting the ore, is done by girls and children, and is described as very wholesome, being done in the open air. In the north of England, on the borders of Northumberland and Durham, are the extensive lead mines of Alston Moor. The reports from this district 242 agree almost wholly with those from Cornwall. Here too, there are complaints of want of oxygen, excessive dust, powder smoke, carbonic acid gas, and sulfur, in the atmosphere of the workings. In consequence, the miners here, as in Cornwall, are small of stature, and nearly all suffer from the 30th year throughout life from chest affections, which end, especially when this work is persisted in, as is almost always the case, in consumption, so greatly shortening the average of life of these people. If the miners of this district are somewhat longer lived than those of Cornwall, this is the case, because they do not enter the mines before reaching the 19th year, while in Cornwall, as we have seen, this work is begun in the 12th year. Nevertheless, the majority die here too, between 40 and 50 years of age, according to medical testimony. Of 79 miners, whose death was entered upon the public register of the district, and who attained an average of 45 years, 37 had died of consumption and 6 of asthma. In the surrounding districts, Allendale, Stanhope, and Middleton, the average length of life was 49, 48, and 47 years respectively, and the deaths from chest affections composed 48, 54, and 56% of the whole number. Let us compare these figures with the so-called Swedish tables, detailed tables of mortality embracing all the inhabitants of Sweden, and recognized in England as the most correct standard hitherto attainable for the average length of life of the British working class. According to them, male persons who survive the 19th year attain an average of 57.5 years, but, according to this, the north of England miners are robbed by their work of an average of 10 years of life. Yet the Swedish tables are accepted as the standard of longevity of the workers, and present, therefore, the average chances of life as affected by the unfavorable conditions in which the proletariat lives, a standard of longevity less than the normal one. In this district we find again the lodging houses and sleeping places with which we have already become acquainted in the towns, and in quite as filthy, disgusting, and overcrowded a state as there. Commissioner Mitchell visited one such sleeping barrack, 18 feet long, 13 feet wide, and arranged for the reception of 42 men and 14 boys, or 56 persons altogether, one half of whom slept above the other in berths as on shipboard. There was no opening for the escape of the foul air, and, although no one had slept in this pen for 3 nights preceding the visit, the smell and the atmosphere were such that Commissioner Mitchell could not endure it a moment. What must it be through a hot summer night, with 56 occupants? And this is not the steerage of an American slave ship, it is the dwelling of free-born Britons. Let us turn now to the most important branch of British mining, the iron and coal mines, which the Children's Employment Commission treats in common, and with all the detail which the importance of the subject demands. Nearly the whole of the first part of this report is devoted to the condition of the workers employed in these mines. After the detailed description which I have furnished of the state of the industrial workers, I shall, however, be able to be as brief in dealing with this subject as the scope of the present work requires. In the coal and iron mines, which are worked in pretty much the same way, children of 4, 5, and 7 years are employed. They are set to transporting the ore or coal loosened by the miner from its place to the horse path or the main shaft, and to opening and shutting the doors which separate the divisions of the mine, and regulate its ventilation for the passage of workers and material. For watching the doors the smallest children are usually employed, who thus pass 12 hours daily, in the dark, alone, sitting usually in damp passages without even having work enough to save them from the stupefying, brutalizing tedium of doing nothing. The transport of coal and ironstone, on the other hand, is very hard labor, the stuff being shoved in large tubs, without wheels, over the uneven floor of the mine, often over moist clay, or through water, and frequently up steep inclines, and through paths so low-roofed, that the workers are forced to creep on hands and knees. For this more wearing labor, therefore, older children and half-grown girls are employed. 1 man or 2 boys per tub are employed, according to circumstances, and, if 2 boys, one pushes and the other pulls. The loosening of the ore or coal, which is done by men or strong youths of 16 years or more, is also very weary work. The usual working day is 11 to 12 hours, often longer. In Scotland it reaches 14 hours, and double time is frequent, when all the employees are at work below ground 24, and even 36 hours at a stretch. Set times for meals are almost unknown, so that these people eat when hunger and time permit. The standard of living of the miners is in general described as fairly good and their wages high in comparison with those of the agricultural labourers surrounding them who, however, live at starvation rates, except in certain parts of Scotland, and in the Irish mines, where great misery prevails. We shall have occasion to return later to this statement, which, by the way, is merely relative, implying comparison to the poorest class in all England. Meanwhile, we shall consider the evils which arise from the present method of mining, and the reader may judge whether any pay in money can indemnify the miner for such suffering. The children and young people who are employed in transporting coal and ironstone all complain of being overtired. Even in the most recklessly conducted industrial establishments there is no such universal and exaggerated overwork. The whole report proves this, with a number of examples on every page. It is constantly happening that children throw themselves down on the stone hearth or the floor, as soon as they reach home, fall asleep at once without being able to take a bite of food, and have to be washed and put to bed while asleep. It even happens that they lie down on the way home, and are found by their parents late at night asleep on the road. It seems to be a universal practice among these children to spend Sunday in bed, to recover in some degree from the overexertion of the week. Church and school are visited by but few, and even of these the teachers complain of their great sleepiness and a want of all eagerness to learn. The same thing is true of the elder girls and women. They are overworked in the most brutal manner. This weariness, which is almost always carried to a most painful pitch, cannot fail to affect the constitution. The first result of such overexertion is that aversion of vitality to the one-sided development of the muscles, so that those especially of the arms, legs, and back, of the shoulders and chest, which are chiefly called into activity in pushing and pulling, attain an uncommonly vigorous development, while all the rest of the body suffers, and is atrophied from want of nourishment. More than all else the stature suffers, being stunted and retarded. Nearly all miners are short, except those of Leicestershire and Warwickshire, who work under exceptionally favorable conditions. Further, among boys as well as girls, puberty is retarded, among the former often until the 18th year. Indeed, a 19-year-old boy appeared before Commissioner Simons, showing no evidence, beyond that of the teeth, that he was more than 11 or 12 years old. This prolongation of the period of childhood is at bottom nothing more than a sign of checked development.